We're live. Oh my goodness. So good to see you all. Well, almost see you all, because in this strange virtual world of events, I love it because we can have many, many, many more people, but I also can't wait until everything goes back to normal and we could actually see you all in person. And I can't believe it's Monday and you're here. This really just goes to speak how committed you all are to getting wealthy, okay? And it's not just about today, and you know that, right? It's about generational wealth. And so before I get on a whole soapbox, I think I live on a soapbox right at this point, but let me just introduce myself, who I am, why we're doing this, what we're doing, and then I will go ahead and introduce you to the women that you are actually here to hear from. So just one thing is, I'm Claire. I'm the founder of Ladies Get Paid. We are an educational platform and global community that is all about helping women level up financially, professionally. We're about power, really. I mean, power in all the ways that you define it, and we want to help you get there. I also, shameless plug for myself, but I came out with a book this year in January. It's called Ladies Get Paid. I'm seeing some clapping from the panelists. I appreciate that. That's how we should all be doing it. We should be supporting each other. And one way to do that is by signing up for Ladies Get Paid, ladiesgetpaid.com, and ladiesgetpaid.com/book. That would be nice too. Okay, so this festival, let me tell you about it. We have started with last week a couple of different panels and workshops all about setting our foundation, okay? So some of that financial literacy, a lot of jargon, okay, a lot of terms that we need to know, we need to define. I also talked about why this is so crucial. We all know the terrible statistics, right? The wage gap, women of color are making between 55 and 68 cents on the dollar. We need to change that. Now, it's hard to change that because it's systemic, right? It's largely, we're dealing with the system. But as an individual, of course, now what can you do? You can make sure that you are negotiating your salary. And not only that, what are you actually going to do with that money once you get the paycheck? Then we talked about investing, right? That was another panel that we had. And it was a little bit more of like traditional, keep doing like these, a little bit more of traditional stuff that you may have heard about, but you never really did, or you have some fear of risk. And well, now we're going to talk about investing in a bit of a different way, in a way that you have probably been reading a lot about during the pandemic. And I've been saying this a ton, which is economy cratered. A lot of people lost their jobs, and some people were getting really, really rich. And some of those people own Bitcoin. Again, I don't need to get on the soapbox because you're all here and you know it. And so today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin and how do you own it? Even, not just why you should own it, but like the process for getting it. And honestly, it's really just this reimagining of the ecosystem, of the future of how we do business, how we operate. So it's not just about us, okay? It's not just about me as an individual, but whole systems are beginning to change. Traditional finance is beginning to shift slowly but surely. And I don't want you all to miss out on the future. Let me talk to you about our panelists, and you're going to see why we asked them here. So Elaine Asher, she is the director of corporate treasury at Anchorage Digital. She'll explain what Anchorage Digital does better than me, but let me just give you the once over. It's the premier digital asset platform for institutions. So it was actually founded in 2017 to meet the growing need for institutional custody that lets investors safely hold and use crypto. So it's going to be interesting, I think, to hear from her about maybe how more like B2B uses Bitcoin, if I understood that correctly, which, by the way, I am totally going to be watching this panel because I have a lot to learn. We have Bitcoin Frankie. She's a creator and entrepreneur of Bitcoin Besties. She is a Bitcoin evangelist. She's an entrepreneur. She's an educator. And part of her story that I am just super inspired by is the fact that it was actually the pandemic that really motivated her to sort of rethink money and using Bitcoin. So I think it'll show you all that even if we're in a crisis, you have power. You have power. Cleve Mesidor, she is the founder of the National Policy Network for Women of Color in Blockchain, which advocates for inclusion in the crypto ecosystem. She's also the founder of Logos, the first decentralized social platform exclusively for activists. And she's also the author, and this is so frustrating because I totally have her book and it's just not in front of me. She's the author of The Clevolution, My Quest for Justice in Politics and Crypto. This panel is moderated by Aubrey Strobel. She's the head of communications and marketing at Lolli, which if you've been coming to our previous panels, and by the way, guys, I'm going to stop talking in approximately 30 seconds. Go in the chat. Tell us if you came to the other events, because if you did, you've probably been hearing about Lolli. We're sort of obsessed. Here, it's you basically get free Bitcoin when you shop online. They've got 1,000 retail partners. So free Bitcoin. Free Bitcoin. That's all I have to tell you. And then also a thank you to public.com. They are our hosts, our sponsors. They've made it possible for you all to attend for free. Public.com is an app that you can use to invest in companies that you care about. It's also a bit of a social network. So you can start sharing where you're investing. Why are you investing, right? It's a really good educational tool. And last but not least, The Balance. They are our media partner, and they will basically, any question you have about money, Google it, go to The Balance. They're going to tell you what to do. Without further ado, I'm going to show off my Bitcoin socks. I'm currently wearing a pair. I've got a couple of others. Can't tell you where I bought them. So you're just going to have to, you're going to have to be jealous of my socks. Anyway, thank you all so much for sticking around, for being here. And I'm going to hop off now so I can actually watch this thing. And yes, the recording will be available in the next week or so. Have a wonderful panel, you all. So grateful for you to be here. And I'm excited to watch you.
Thank you, Ashley.
All righty. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this Bitcoin 101 panel. I just want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable, in the chat. Like, feel free to ask any questions that you may have. This is my favorite thing that I've done in a long time, because usually, as most people know, the industry is super male dominated, and I'm usually the only woman on a panel. So, and I'm sure the other participants can attest to that. So we're just going to make it super digestible. We want to be helpful to you, and we want you to, learn how you can, own Bitcoin, and then like what it is, and then the next steps in your process of your journey of owning crypto. So I'm going to let each participant go around and sort of just explain how they got into it, because it is not too late for you if you're sitting here and you're like, I missed the wave, I'm out. Like, that is not what this is. We're getting you in the doors. So let's start with Cleve and just sort of your story and how you got into the space.
Yeah, I have a public policy background. I worked on Capitol Hill. I was a political appointee in the Obama administration, and that's how I first learned about Bitcoin. In 2013, a friend randomly asked me, "Can you write a press release for my Bitcoin project?" Had no idea what it was. I actually wrote the press release, learned about Bitcoin, kept following, but it was not until 2015, 2016 where the conversation went beyond the currency to all of these other possibilities, about privacy and, intellectual property rights. And so that's when I went down the rabbit hole, and I've been hooked ever since. So I've actually married my public policy background in crypto and crypto together. So I'm thrilled to work with so many dynamic women of color who are leaders in this industry and who are building products and services on blockchain.
Amazing. And Elaine, if you want to just tell your background, like when you got into it.
Yeah. So I was introduced to Bitcoin back in 2013, thanks to some very dear friends who were also clients of mine at the time when I worked in the private bank at JP Morgan. And as you can imagine, back in 2013, JP Morgan wouldn't touch Bitcoin with a 10-foot pole. But because my clients had so much of their wealth in it, I had to learn even more and more about it. And as I watched their balance sheet grow, I thought, you're no smarter than I am. I can figure this out too. And so I was determined to figure out how to personally invest in Bitcoin. And that's how I fell down the rabbit hole. And I'm so excited to be here because it's one of my personal passions to get more women invested in Bitcoin, because it is truly going to be a wealth creation event that will pass us ladies by unless we get in now. And it is certainly not too late. And I'm really excited. So I left JP Morgan because I wanted to dedicate my career to Bitcoin and crypto, and especially getting more women involved. Spent some time at Bitwise, which was a great index product, and I'm now at Anchorage working on corporate treasury. But I am filling in for somebody who cannot be filled in for, Catherine Coley, the CEO of Binance. And so I just want to give a plug to Binance. Catherine and I have been really dear friends for many years now. As Cleve mentioned, there are not that many women in crypto, and so we stick together and look out for each other. So it's great to be here today. Thanks, Aubrey.
And Frankie.
Yes, hi friends. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm one of the last to join Bitcoin, at least as of 2020. My story is I've been operating a successful marketing agency for 12 years. And, I was prepared for a recession, but I was not prepared for a pandemic. My agency was event staffing. So as you can tell, I lost 100% of my clients within 48 hours of nationwide lockdowns. And so it really kind of pushed me into the space where I had to sit down and have a really intimate money date with myself and ask myself, what are you going to do? And enters Bitcoin. So that's why I'm here now.
Love it. Love it. Thank you everyone for explaining their beginnings. And I think just to jump into it, why everyone's here, let's talk about what is Bitcoin and why people should be owning it. And I think, if we want to just explain, I think it's a very easy concept in many ways, but it's also very technical. And so one thing I want to stress here is that you don't need to know everything about Bitcoin to invest in it. But if you had to explain Bitcoin to a friend or someone just like at a bar, like what would you say, Elaine?
Yeah, I use a quick little story that typically right now, if I wanted to send you $10, Aubrey, we would do it through banks. I mean, the easiest way is if I hand you a $10 bill and, that's a bearer instrument. I had it, now you have it. The way we normally do it is through a bank. And so I tell my bank, I want to send you $10. My bank tells your bank it's coming. The banks verify that I have it. Then your bank sends it to you, yada, yada. There are fees taken along the way, cuts taken, spreads made. And imagine trying to send money to South Africa and all the different correspondent banks it has to go through. And what Bitcoin does is instead of going through banks, I broadcast this transmission to a network of computers all around the world that are decentralized. And those computers verify that I have the $10 and then verify that it's going to you. And then it is encoded. I like to think of it like a fly in amber, and that's the blockchain. That transaction cannot be changed. And there's a lot of technical stuff behind the scenes of how that actually happens. There are lots to read if you want to. You don't really need to dig too much further down. Like the one last thing I would say is that why would thousands of computers around the world waste their time and energy to verify that I sent you $10? It's because they're racing to win a tiny bit of Bitcoin, and whoever gets there fastest by solving some crazy mathematical problem wins a little bit of Bitcoin. So that's kind of my high level talking to my mother of what Bitcoin is. I'm sure you guys have better explanations, but that's kind of a super high level.
That's great. It's very accurate and pretty succinct. I think sometimes you tell people your Bitcoin story or how, in a technical sense about the nodes and all that. And once you start saying nodes and mining, they're like, I'm done. So you don't need to know about proof of work or any of that stuff to understand it. But let's go to Bitcoin, Frankie, and just explain how do you tell your girlfriends, what Bitcoin is?
Yeah, I mean, think of the days in middle school or high school when you were at your fair selling goods and services to your neighborhood, right? When someone bought a cupcake for 50 cents or a water bottle for $1, you didn't have to trust that person, right? You just needed to see that they had the money with your own eyes, right? Well, fast forward 20, 30 years later, we've shifted to a digital society, and the majority of our payments are made by credit cards over the internet, right? So think of our credit cards like Visa and Amex and MasterCards. Those are the middleman these days in these transactions, right? And because we've shifted to more reliance on digital transactions, we literally have no choice but to trust the middleman to approve and to verify every single payment, because we cannot see the money ourselves any longer. We went from being able to physically carry, transfer, and verify our money ourselves to now watching numbers on a screen being stored and verified by a third party who basically controls the transfer. So over time, guys, we gave up carrying cash because digital payments just seem way more convenient, right? But in doing this, we the people, you and I, we created a system that gives third parties more power over our money and ultimately over our sovereignty. So Bitcoin offers us a solution to getting back to the person to the person-to-person nature of giving and receiving our money, but in digital form.
Amazing. Yeah, I think something that's important to think about is people are obviously attracted to Bitcoin because of the price has gone up significantly over the past year, but it's really the technology behind it and why it is a better form of money. Words like sovereignty ring, clear, freedom, just more ownership over your own money, which you really should have. And I think we've stepped away from that in previous, in years, just because we've given banks and institutions all this trust, and we've seen sort of the decline of that, with what happened in 2008, and then Bitcoin kind of rose right out of that time, which was kind of interesting and notable. But Cleve, would love to hear more on your thoughts on Bitcoin and how you just your pitch.
Yeah, no, I love everything that's been said, and goes along the lines of how I explained it as well. I always like to share the relationship between blockchain and cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin specifically. But I love the cash analogy, right? When you think of some of the protocols and the properties, the applications. So cash, if you pay something with cash, I tell people, no one's tracking it, no one's taxing it. You go to the store, you give them cash. You have that level of privacy. But also, you own cash, right? It's on you. So if you lose it, you have to protect it, right? So going back to what you said, Aubrey, in terms of that ownership. So people have forgotten how much we've actually lost from moving away from cash, right? So obviously there's a reason, depending on the local fiat of where you're at, we've actually done that. But what we've lost is what Bitcoin, what blockchain technology gives us back, right? It is that, empowerment. It is that, personal relationship with your money. And it is the fact that nobody is watching tracing your every step with your money. This is not about, dodging the IRS or anything. It's about financial freedom.
Love that. And, I think there's been some interesting stats that have come out over the past year. eToro came out with a study that said only, 15% of Bitcoin traders are women. And so because this is a woman-focused panel, I want to know, in your guys' opinion, why you think that, women are kind of a little late to the game of crypto and Bitcoin. Like it still is pretty male-dominated, but why do you think that is? And, why do you think women should be owning Bitcoin? So I'll go with Frankie.
Okay. I've said this often, that's part of Bitcoin besties, women, we just tend to be more thoughtful, more conscious investors, and we tend to think things through when it comes to our money, right? So Bitcoin is just so new, it can downright be confusing, and a lot of times we just need that time to sort through it. And I think maybe Elaine said that earlier, she said, something along the lines of, it's just a lot, we have to think things through. And when it's so much information, we kind of don't know where to start. I think it's just really giving ourselves that time, creating that money date to sit down and really say, you know what, I'm gonna take 2 hours tonight to into the Safe Bitcoin Standard book and just become educated on it. Because we're more thoughtful investors. We just need to take our time to learn about it. I think timing maybe. Go ahead.
Too, Aubrey, if you think about Bitcoin and where it sits at the intersection of all of these things that are very male dominated, finance, technology, cryptography, these are not industries that are filled with women, typically, historically. And so that's kind of an intimidating place to even begin. And I think just like, Frankie was saying, that I think women as investors like to know everything before they make an investment decision because they are thoughtful. And like I was saying to the group before we started, it's almost impossible to know everything there is to know about crypto because there's so much information out there and there's so much happening and changing quickly. But just like I was saying earlier, we probably all own Apple stock somewhere in a portfolio or IRA or 401k. I could not tell you how my iPhone works. I have no idea. But I feel confident in the fact that people are using iPhones and therefore I would like to own the stock. And so I think you can kind of get there with Bitcoin as well, that if you're just talking from a basic supply and demand perspective, it's a nice way to talk about it. But that, to your point about why there aren't a lot of women in, It's intimidating, and it's not super user-friendly. The UX design still leaves a lot to be desired. The on-ramps are not super friendly. It's changing a lot and getting a lot better. And services like Lolli, I think, are a great way to like dip your toe in. Sorry for the shameless plug of you, but
let's keep following. Keep going.
Keep going.
I have my 75-year-old mother shopping on Lolli, and she loves it. And she's like, I've earned so much Bitcoin. It's amazing.
I love that. See, that's really the message of Bitcoin in like its ethos. It's like Bitcoin is for everyone, and it's not just for men. And this is the goal of this chat. Like, women, you need to own Bitcoin. Like, we need to get you in the door, and we need to like start making up a larger majority of the group. Cleve, we'll go to you and your thoughts on why women aren't and why they should. I think we understand it's been intimidating. We get that, but like, why should women specifically?
Yeah. So women tend to be heads of households. We're risk averse, as has been said. We also are very protective of our disposable income. And I think it's why we have to demystify Bitcoin and really talk about it within the context. Like, when I talk to women about Bitcoin, I get asked the questions about, well, can I convert it to cash? Can I earn interest? Like, women are very conservative when they think about that. So when they see the volatility of Bitcoin and they wonder, they get sticker shock from the price, I tell women you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. There's a whole marketplace around it. So I do think that, one, we have to start demystifying Bitcoin and start talking about it in plain terms, understanding that, women have every right to be protective of their disposable income, but we have to shift the focus away from the volatility of Bitcoin's price and talk about the great thing about purchasing a fraction of Bitcoin, and also being able to monitor the prices, right? I tell people about CoinMarketCap all the time. You can get financial information there.
Yeah. I think sorry to interrupt, but I think one of the other ways to put it in context, and I was doing a lot of Bitcoin 101 Zoom sessions for women and friends during quarantine. And one of the things, like Cleve was just saying, is that women are in charge of household income and are very conscious of what's coming in and going out. The one thing we haven't mentioned about Bitcoin yet is that it has a finite, hard-capped, fixed supply. There will only ever be 21 million of them. How many US dollars are there? I don't know. We keep printing them. So people understand that the fixed supply and then supply and demand, what that means. And one of the things that I found resonated most with women who are managing budgets is the cash you have sitting in the bank today is going to be able to buy you less things a year from now. It's just a fact. Michael Saylor of MicroStrategies talks about cash as a melting ice cube. And just like he and his big corporate balance sheet are putting cash into Bitcoin, we as individuals can put cash into Bitcoin to preserve our purchasing power in some regards.
I totally agree. Go ahead. Were you going to say something, Cleve?
Yeah, I was going to just, piggyback off of Elaine, saying that, we have to encourage women to jump in, but tell them that it's not one of those, oh my God, I might die, right? So if you start with, I tell people to start with $5, $25, but also, once you actually, and be a buddy, actually. The women I tell about Bitcoin who buy it, they'll call me all the time, sometimes weird times, asking for advice, but we have to actually walk each other through the process and let people know that, you can start very slowly. That relationship with money, that threshold is very important as we move forward.
I have three different text chain chat groups with different groups of women for just that very thing. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's been getting on this panel, you have friends that didn't listen to you for years, and then they come back and they're like, oh, I should have gotten a Bitcoin. And I think a part of this is there's a hesitancy to basically not buy because they don't know when's the right time to buy and they feel like they've missed out. So I think there's the volatility aspect, and then there's just like at what price do I get in? And I would like to go back to Elaine's note. I know a lot of people have been hearing about Dogecoin recently. That's an example of a cryptocurrency that does not have a supply cap on it. And because there is no supply cap, they can mint more Doge. Bitcoin Frankie is back. She was gone for a second and now she's back. But I think there's some research that needs to be done there. And that's why Bitcoin is so unique, is because it is finite. It is backed by math, and there will only be 21 million. But back to your note, you have friends that obviously don't sit in front of a Bitcoin chart all day and look at the price and when to buy. So what is your advice to like the people that are watching this and like, well, when do I buy? You know, I usually say dollar cost average in. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that. I don't know who wants to take that.
Oh, go ahead, Cleve.
Oh, no. I actually tell people Bitcoin is a good price at any price, you know, and I tell people the best time to buy Bitcoin is when the price is going down, right? So don't be afraid. Oh my God, it's going down. Any price is a good price, and when it's going down is the best time to jump in. And again, you know, pointing them to the resources of where they can purchase it makes a lot of sense. But Elaine, I cut you off.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, I think the quote might be from Warren Buffett, but it's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market. So I tell people, like, just do it. Buy $5, get in. Doesn't matter what the price is, because if I think most of us probably believe Bitcoin could be over $1 million one day, because we see the supply and demand and we know what's happening. So, and we see what's happening in the global macro economy of central banks all over the world printing money. So one day we will laugh and say, oh, it won't matter if you got in at 50 or 60 or 70 or 40, because it's going to be way up here. So I actually literally had this conversation with friends around Thanksgiving, and he was like, well, it's 19. Will it dip to 16? Should I wait? I was like, just do it now. Just do it now. It won't matter.
Exactly. Frankie, do you have anything to add on that end? Just like when people should get in, there's like that, like dipping your toe in, and then no one, it's almost that fear of, you know, doing it, that they hesitate and then they don't do it at all. So then they end up not participating. So what do you say to those people who are sort of like sitting on the fence?
You know, for me, I think I have a high tolerance for risk. And so I tend not to give my opinion on this very often. But what I would ask myself is, like, are you the type of person that knows how to create money? You know what I mean? If you have those skill sets to, like, just always go back and do what you got to do to, like, create wealth for yourself, then, you know, taking a little bit of risk and getting off zero is going to be no big deal for you. You know, obviously, if you're risk adverse, don't put everything that you own into Bitcoin, but definitely get off zero. You know, start with, like Elaine said, $5, $10, and just watch it for a little bit. You know, I nudged my parents to get into Bitcoin by sending them $100 into an app. And after they watched it for a few weeks, they realized, this is, like, interesting. I'm seeing gains here. And then eventually they decided to invest more money. And so, yeah, just get off zero, you know, $5, $10 and watch it.
I think, Aubrey, if I could just add to something Frankie was saying that makes sense, is to think of it in the larger context of your investments. And so you think of your investments as a pie, and in the business we call it portfolio allocation strategy. So you decide what you're willing to risk, because to be clear, this is still a very risky, volatile asset class, and you should not invest more than you're willing to lose. Like, I say that to all of my friends, say it to myself. You think about your portfolio allocation and you're like, okay, I'm willing to put 5% of all of my investable assets, whether that's $100 or $100 million. You say, okay, I'm gonna do 5%. And then within that, you can say, okay, I want half of that to be Bitcoin. I want half to be ETH, or maybe you want all of it to be Bitcoin. But that's a good way to think about it, so that if Bitcoin goes to zero, you only lost 1% of your total net worth, so you're fine. And this is how some of the bigger institutions are thinking about it when they start allocating to Bitcoin. And I will say, to the volatility issue, yes, Bitcoin seems volatile on a day-to-day basis, but if you look at it in a historical context, within a broader portfolio and rebalanced on a regular basis, Bitcoin actually doesn't make your portfolio that volatile. And it's crazy over time, because one thing we haven't talked about is, so far it's relatively non-correlated. And not to get technical, that just means it does something different when stocks and bonds do this. And when you're thinking about investments in general, you want things that behave differently in case everything goes to hell. Now, unfortunately, last March, everything did go to hell. And so Bitcoin went to hell as well. But it rebounded faster than everything else and proved its kind of non-correlation. store of value behavior. So that's how I think about it.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, like if you're a surfer, think about this. If you're a surfer, you go into the ocean knowing that you are going to get pushed around and you might even break a bone one day. But the adrenaline and the love for the sport for those who are surfers, it doesn't let that stop him. And for me, I feel similar about that investing in money. I love money and I want to play where there is money. And my boyfriend told me today, Ray Dalio said it himself, putting all your eggs in one basket is how you get wealthy. Diversifying is how you stay wealthy. So think about that when it comes to like this new asset class that is proving to be quite the winning horse.
Yeah. And Aubrey, if I can just add, there's another access point that I tell people, especially for my friends who are extremely risk averse, because women, as we said, tend to be head of household, risk averse. Most of us have a hustle. We have a side hustle. We're entrepreneur. We have an e-commerce business. Another way for them to start accumulating Bitcoin is just to start accepting cryptocurrency, set up a merchant account. And so I assure them once they set up that merchant account, they can convert it to cash, which is always a question, and do it easily. But also it's a great way for them to start accumulating cryptocurrency and also have access to a new marketplace. So there are other options like creating a merchant account for people who may not be ready to set up an account to invest yet.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think another point to what Elaine was saying a little bit earlier, and that was a great point, Cleve, too, of just accepting payment. There was a story about a woman who was accepting payment years ago, and she checked her balance, and she was like, wow, this was the best decision I ever made. And hopefully that could be something that, people on this chat could do and be thankful for years down the line. But back to Elaine's point, if you look at the Bitcoin chart over the past 10 years, it is, and compared to other assets, it is the best performing asset over the past 10 years. And I think people really get hung up on the day-to-day. And if you really have this long-term vision and believe in Bitcoin and believe that it is the better form of money, the best money, the hardest money out there, that you're going to be okay. And so I think, that's another thing to look at too. I would recommend that everyone go look at that. And then just know it's basically been running at 99.9% of efficiency. It's very secure and it's here to stay. So those are some things to look at. But we've talked a lot about, what is Bitcoin, how much you should buy, allocate, but how do you get people in? How can these people start earning and just getting Bitcoin in their wallets today? So where do you usually point people? Let's go, Cleve.
Yeah, I have a little cheat sheet that I share. I tell people go where they're most comfortable. And usually for people, that's Cash App or PayPal. Easy, very easy. And people are always struck by how quickly and easy, because they thought it was this big, crazy thing. And they're just like, oh my God, 2 minutes. And I find that once they actually do that, they'll come back to me and say, well, how can I buy on an exchange? So then I tell them about, Binance US, Gemini, and others. And always they come back to me and say, well, can I start investing? How can I get interest? And I tell them about others like, BlackFi and others. But I do think we have to understand that there's a process, that if we start people with where they are at, and unfortunately that is the off-chain platforms that are not real cryptocurrency. But once they actually say, oh my God, my $25 in Cash App just increased, they'll come back to you and say, how can I go deeper?
Awesome. And Frankie, where do you point people? How can they get involved?
I point people to education and to get off zero. Yeah, I'd send them my Cash App only because it's super easy and it's super quick to get onboarded. I usually just send them a Cash App referral. And those who actually cannot, literally can't afford to buy Bitcoin, because sometimes that's the reality. A lot of us are strapped out there. And so one way that I tell them is sign up for Lolli and then sign up for Fold Card, which you earn Bitcoin every day just by just by spinning the wheel. So and like making purchases on the debit card. So I have stacked quite a bit of stacks on Lolli and Fold, and I'm grateful because that's free Bitcoin, guys. And I think we're going to start seeing that in more of our reward programs. No one wants travel points any longer. So there's going to be more ways to earn free Bitcoin just by doing what we normally do every day. And so I would keep an eye out for opportunities like that, especially if you can't purchase Bitcoin right now or Satoshis.
Yeah, the one thing I always say is that everyone, not everyone is going to be an investor in their life. Like that's not always someone's, MO, but everyone shops. So you can be an investor through shopping. You're buying groceries at Kroger, you're buying, you're going to make these purchases anyway. So you might as well, instead of getting cash back on like a Rakuten or a Honey, sign up for Lolli and start earning Bitcoin. There's no excuse to really, you're not putting your money in, you're just getting paid kickbacks from it. So, okay, we're back to Elaine on what you tell people to just get involved and can start getting Bitcoin today.
Yep. So I make everybody download the Lolli app and tap, which we haven't talked about yet. Lolli has this amazing thing where you can go tap a treasure chest every day and earn little tiny bits of Bitcoin.
I do it every day.
I do it every day. It's literally when I have my coffee in the morning. You know how now your phones know too much about you? It literally says, "Do you want to open Lolli?" I'm like, oh crap, I forgot. I got to go tap the treasure chest. It's so fun. So I get them on Lolli, Fold as well. But then it depends on what their investment goals are and where they are on a technological spectrum, if you will. Like my mother is never going to download a Coinbase app or a or Abra app. There are vehicles for people who are maybe like higher net worth investors who you can put them in funds that somebody else manages and they'll pay a fee. And there's lots of good ones out there. I used to work for a firm called Bitwise who does that very well. And then there's actually, and I don't typically like to promote them, but it's on sale right now. If you have a retirement account, you can go purchase something, a self-directed retirement account. You can purchase something called GBTC, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which is typically, it tracks the price of Bitcoin, but it's typically traded at a significant premium. So you think you're buying $100 of Bitcoin, you're really only buying 70 and you're paying them 30. That's a bad deal. But right now, for a variety of reasons, it's on sale. So the premium is lower than the actual price. So GBTC is an easy way to get exposure in your brokerage or your IRA. There are a couple firms who do allow you to hold Bitcoin in self-directed IRAs. I cannot remember the names off the top of my head, but IRAs are a good place where a lot of us have money sitting, and it matches really well with the time horizon of Bitcoin, because I really do think Bitcoin, we haven't really talked about this yet, but it is a buy and hold for many, 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 many years. I think people were talking about this on Twitter, but I think there's going to be one day where you never sell your Bitcoin. You just borrow against it back and forth because it's going to be that strong of a store of value. But all that is to say is it matches up really well with a retirement account horizon, depending on your age and retirement age. But then, I know others. I personally use, because I invest in a lot more than just Bitcoin, I personally use some of the ones that have more tokens. Binance, for sure, is especially great if you like to trade and if you like an order book where you see the bid-ask spread. I know that's intimidating to some people. They have now changed to have a more simple version, but Binance is great. They're the cheapest by far. I think one of the things that I find frustrating about Coinbase is that while it is so ubiquitous, it's really expensive. And so if you're paying a couple bucks each time you buy or sell, it adds up quickly. I've also used BlockFi. I'm trying to think what else. Those are some of the ones I use. But to your point, Frankie, about getting rewards and shopping, I was checking an old account of mine. I used to use Abra because back in the day, Abra had a lot more. It was an easy app, and Abra had a lot more tokens than anybody else, and I got a referral fee for referring some friends. I went and checked my referral fee the other day. That $10 is now worth $1,300. This is what happens, and you forget about it kind of, but this is how much Bitcoin has appreciated in the past 5 years or so. Wow. It was a fun surprise.
Wow, that is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Aubrey, I would go back to your question, or the points that we're making that, some women just cannot invest. And I have to tell you, when I speak with women of color, I tell them they cannot afford not to invest because the future of money is digital. and it's moving towards this, right? So for women of color, especially communities that have been economically disadvantaged, this is not about an investment. This is about how we will approach money, in the fourth industrial revolution as this innovation economy is actually moving forward. So we talk about Bitcoin as an investment, but it's also a cashless payment system, as the white paper said. So for people out there, and if you're risk averse about investment, actually, this is actually how you're going to transact in the future, when you think about the future of money. So women, regardless of race, but women of color, we have to be proactive so that we can participate in this innovation economy that's really borderless and global, and no one can afford to be left behind.
I love that so much, Cleve. Really just opting out of like a very bad system. And that's for, it's for women, it's for people of color. If you just think about the rails that we've been on for so long, there's a ton of abuse on all sides. And thank you so much for making that point. I think that's very strong. And I've been, done some research on women just historically, and historically women haven't had control over bank accounts and couldn't have this full autonomy over their money. So this is a real opportunity for everyone that's sitting in on this panel. And so I just want to make sure that everyone sees this as while it is a great investment, it's also an opportunity to opt out. So another thing I think we haven't really touched on, and I just want to go into a little bit more of the technicality of it. I just want to talk about, that Bitcoin is divisible, and that makes it, you can purchase, you don't have to purchase a whole Bitcoin. I don't think we've made that clear yet, that you can sort of get fractions of Bitcoin back. So that and the payments aspect that Elaine was talking about, for a while, people have been talking about Bitcoin it is a payment system. However, we're coming up on I think it's the 11th anniversary of the Bitcoin Pizza Day. And if people don't know that story, basically these two guys bought pizza from Papa John's with some Bitcoin that they had back in 2010, 2013, I don't even know what year it was. And now those pizzas are worth over $100 million. And it's not a joke. It's very serious. And I'm sure they wish they would have never spent those sats on a pizza. But so there's reasons to just hold on to your money in that way. But I don't know if anyone wants to add to that.
Well, I'll add to that, because there is this lamenting over, oh my God, I spent my Bitcoin. But it took those people to spend Bitcoin on something for the value to go up, right? For the marketplace to open up. And I'll tell you, most people who bought Bitcoin or mined Bitcoin early on, probably spent it, right? Because when was it? In 2011 was the first time it hit $1. And then people were just like, oh my God, that was huge. $20, huge. So I think, we have the luxury today of saying hold. But I do think for, over the last decade, that relationship with Bitcoin, it took people spending it for the thing to actually become this thing, right? So for all of those folks who are just like, oh my God, I should not have spent it on pizza. Thank you for spending it on pizza.
And, to be fair, it is being used as payment around the world. We are very lucky that in the United States, we can count on the value of our dollar, relatively speaking. But if you live in Venezuela or Turkey or somewhere else, and your local fiat is getting inflated away, you really do transact in Bitcoin and use Bitcoin. And I don't know if this is getting, next level, but there's a really cool, interesting project called Strike by Jack Mallers, who's a genius. And he's been filming videos of him in El Salvador, paying for a Pepsi in El Salvador with his Strike wallet and Bitcoin. It just goes instantly. I think that's the other piece that it's instant payment, which is amazing. So if you're a retailer, you love it because it settles instantly. You don't have to pay a credit card processing fee, and you don't have to wait a month for the credit card company to pay you. You have instantly received this. And so I think in other places in the world, it really is being used for payments much more than in the United States.
Yeah.
And Aubrey, I do think it's an important time to talk about custody, right? Because we are in a time when hold your Bitcoin, don't spend it, but you're just like,
But
oh,
where?
I don't have it like that. I have to spend it. So
Yeah.
we have options today, right? We can actually take out loans against our Bitcoin so we can hold and still have financial freedom.
Yeah, and I think to talk about custody, this is another point of Bitcoin, and it can be a positive thing and a negative thing, but it is the idea of that you are your own bank. So you are, self-custody is taking your coins off of an exchange. An exchange would be something like Coinbase or Binance or Gemini. So while they hold them, Bitcoin is not fully yours until it is off there. So do we kind of just want to go into just a few tips about how, any like cold storage just means that it's not sitting hot on a centralized, like sort of a centralized app exchange. So is there anything that you guys have used or recommend that other people use, and why they should be self-custody?
So I'll take this because I work for a custodian. So Anchorage is a digital bank for large institutions because large institutions need a third-party custodian to hold this for them. It's part of their laws. It's part of the government regulation. They need Fidelity to hold their stock certificates, which is crazy. But, so they need somebody like Anchorage to hold their digital assets for them. So cold and hot, these terms I think are another area where it gets a little intimidating, but like Aubrey just said, cold simply means that it's not touching the internet, so it cannot be hacked. And I used to give away Ledger wallets to friends as gifts and to my family as gifts. And a Ledger wallet is just something that looks like a USB drive. And it's not the easiest thing in the world, and it is a little bit manual still. So I have written down my seed phrase, and it's in one vault. I've got my Ledger in the other vault. And they never touch the internet.
Let's explain the seed phrase too.
Yeah. So this is where it gets a little bit technical, but there's the way digital assets are secured is through something called private keys. And so there's a private key and a public key. And the public key is they're both really long chains of numbers and letters that you could never remember in your life, although apparently some people do. And the public is how, if Aubrey wanted to send me some Bitcoin, I would give her my public key. The only way I can access my wallet, is with the private key. And the way you remember it is like a seed phrase, where you have to write down the seed phrase to be able to generate this crazy long string of numbers, which sounds a little complicated, but once you figure it out, it's not that hard. It's just like using a password. And it's actually the cryptography part of crypto. And it's been around for a long, long time before crypto. It's how they secured like NASA launch codes for things. So, it's a really good point to make that unless you have your own crypto on a private ledger or a computer that never touches the internet, it's not technically yours. But I think, and you guys feel free to disagree, but I think as the industry's gotten bigger and bigger, if Coinbase got hacked, that would be really bad for everybody. But I think the security, or if Gemini got hacked, that would be really bad. But I think the security that everybody has in place and the amount of insurance, the fact that there's insurance now, that Lloyd's of London and Aon are insuring things like Gemini, Anchorage, Coinbase, Binance, et cetera, that's a good thing. I think it's also important to point out, we hadn't really mentioned, the Bitcoin network has never been hacked. The network itself, which is now worth, almost $1 trillion, never been hacked. And you can guarantee that hackers have been trying to, because it's a really big pot of money. So you hear about the scandals of like the guy in Canada and Quadriga X, I don't even know how to pronounce it, but that was just horrible, poor security management. And the big companies today are not doing that, thankfully.
Yeah. When I think of cold storage, I do think that, it's technical, but at some point we're going to have this conversation with folks, especially April's Financial Literacy Month. But I always tell people, think of back in the day when people put their money in their freezer because it was in their person. That was the cold storage. But it's physically
literally
somehow that you control it, right? That if somebody steals your freezer, it's gone, but you actually, have that ownership over, your crypto, and it's so important. But I do think that, as we're actually moving moving people deeper into crypto. Once they're actually down the rabbit hole a little bit, we need to talk to them about cold storage. We need to talk to them about them. And again, that's one of the freedoms or protections that, cryptocurrency gives us, right? We don't have that protection. Like if Bank of America or Chase, gets hacked, all of your money is gone. And so,
yeah. Well, I think it's important to talk about too, it's a Bitcoin, digital assets are a bearer instrument, meaning if you have possession of it, it is yours. If you lose it, it is not yours. And so if you lose your private key to your ledger or whatever you're storing it on, it's gone. Like you cannot get it back, cannot retrieve it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I don't know if you froze there, if I'm not sure if it looks frozen.
It looks like she did.
Yeah.
I will add to that until Elaine comes back that it is high attention to detail is necessary because you are using these, keys that you're sitting around. You make sure you're using your public key in the right context and your private key in the right context, because once you make a transaction and you send it, I think she's back. Yeah, I was
sorry.
Finished off your thing.
Internet. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Once you send, it is gone, and there's no helpline, which is, if you want to give you the case why you want to keep something in a bank, you get to call someone and ask them where your funds are. That is not the case with Bitcoin or crypto. So it is, it is imperative to be like high detail on on any transaction and everything you're doing. Also, I would say, if you have people reaching out to you, saying that they can connect you with some sort of Bitcoin project, or just be careful about who comes out. There's a lot of people out there that are being sort of scammy at the moment, and I just would never want to see anyone hurt in any way. Frankie, would you like to add anything to that? And I think I'll just start taking some questions from the chat after this. So start putting in some questions to the chat. We love to answer them, but Frankie, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just think that, it is technical, and I believe that each and every one of you can figure this out. Absolutely. And in fact, we become more responsible with all things with Bitcoin. I cannot tell you how much more organized and excited I am about digital privacy than I've ever been. Yeah. So this helps us level up, guys. When you're looking at this, don't look at it like, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever. It's too technical. I'm not going to get it. Look at it as an opportunity to grow and expand.
Exactly.
That's so great. I would also recommend a really great book that I give to everybody who's new to Bitcoin. It's called The Little Bitcoin Book. And it is, honestly, it's 50 pages, and the subtitle is something about why Bitcoin is important to your freedom, your future, and your finances. And it was written by a group of people, including people from the Human Rights Foundation. And it's a really great high-level, non-technical, but with some technical pieces like private keys and cold storage in there. But it's a really great introduction of why Bitcoin is important for the future.
Awesome. Great. All right, let's start taking some questions. What do you guys want to know about Bitcoin? We're happy to answer them. I'm just going to scroll up a little bit. Is there any women blockchain Telegram groups that you guys recommend, or any sort of networking groups that you want to just throw out there?
Well, I lead the National Policy Network of Women of Color and Blockchain. We do events all the time. Actually, I have an event coming up for National Small Business Week on May 5th. And my website is wocblockchainpolicy.com, so you can follow the various events. But there are many, many women in blockchain groups wherever you are. There's Women in Blockchain Boston. Monsi Vowell runs that along with others. So wherever you are, across the country, across the world, there are various groups of women of color, women in blockchain that you can access, that you can actually join those networks, and certainly on Telegram as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I would add, there's so many Discord groups and Telegram groups that I'm involved in. I try to do my best to connect women in this space through Bitcoin Besties, which started out as a community of women who can help champion one another's financial successes through Bitcoin. I think where we're going with it now is more of like a marketing agency for Bitcoin companies. So I'm also looking for a co-founder, anyone out there who might be skilled in all things social media. And honestly, like if you're looking for something specific, likely someone in our Telegram group knows in any one of our groups. So just ask questions and get involved. Ask Twitter, ask anyone that you might know. You can join Cleve's group and just ask in the group. Like, people want to be helpful in this community.
Yeah, I don't have any specific that I follow on Telegram or Discord, but I will say that it is a very welcoming community, especially women in crypto and women in blockchain, because we want more. And I would also say, another thing we didn't really touch on is consider a career in this. Like, nobody really has crypto experience because it's so new. So if you are working in traditional finance or in marketing or in PR, and you're looking for a new job, they're hiring like mad because they're getting venture funding like mad, and their token price is going up. And there's tons of jobs out there. It's a really fun industry, and women especially are very welcoming to more women coming on.
Yes, come work in crypto. I'm very excited about that. There are a ton of websites, and Pomp launched a website. I think it's cryptopumpjobs.com.
Yeah.
So look at that. There's a lot of firms that are looking to hire too. So, if you guys, shoot me a message, add me on LinkedIn if you're looking for a particular job, because they are looking to hire. Yeah. And I think another way that we get more women, leadership in these conferences that we are all attending, I'll be at the Bitcoin Miami one, but I'll meet you guys all in person. That'll be great if you guys attend.
Yeah.
But, will you go? Are you going, Cleve?
I'm going to Miami too, but there's a website called careersinblockchain.us. It's one of them that
amazing.
And Maria just posted pompcryptojobs.com.
Great.
Shout out to Maria at Public.
Woo! We love Maria. Yeah, and I think it's we've all been to a crypto conference where there's not a lot of women. I mean, I've been in this space for 5 years. I've gone to the conferences where I'm like the only woman at the conference, and I'm glad to see it changing. I would really welcome a job in crypto is great. I love my job, so definitely apply. If there's any other resources, feel free to put them in the chat. And then if anyone has any questions, go ahead, Frankie.
I was going to say, and ladies, if you're single, I promise you, this is a great place to be.
I just saw that. Here's a good story. Is that a woman I know who used to work for a traditional hedge fund that had worked on insurance funds. She just landed a job as the general counsel of a very large crypto fund. She does not know anything about crypto. She didn't even know what Bitcoin was. So don't be afraid, because this is new territory. Nobody really has tons of experience in crypto.
And we are like day one still.
Yeah.
I just want people to know.
Yes, we're super
early.
And this is
I mean, y'all.
I was going to say, this is not just technical jobs, right? There's entry level, there's senior positions, there's technical, non-technical, especially for women. We think of blockchain as tech and, oh my God, I don't know how to code. No, this is a space that requires soft skills and hard skills. So if you're entry level, look to blockchain. If you're middle management in whatever career you have, this is where we need the people who understand the problems and who can actually understand how to apply blockchain and cryptocurrency to help solve them.
Love that. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we are so early. Guys, think about this, ladies. I'm sorry. I've been wanting to be on a ladies get paid platform for years, y'all, as an entrepreneur who loves money, but maybe in marketing, right? And it never happened, but enters Bitcoin. And y'all, again, I started my Instagram page in January, and I've become a crypto influencer, creator. It's what I love to do. It's how I'm immersing myself in Bitcoin. It's happened so quickly because there is room for all of us to expand and grow right now. So shout out to Maria for recommending me for this podcast. Manifestation doesn't happen, and this was great. So thank you for having me.
Well, I think that's a great example too of like good things happen when women have more money. That is one of the primary reasons that I'm trying to get more women into Bitcoin, because we're not going to go buy Lambos. We're going to fund nonprofits. We're going to help poverty. We're going to help each other. We're going to fund each other's businesses. We're going to seed more women entrepreneurs. Like, this is why I'm so passionate about trying to get women into crypto, because it is going to lead to wealth creation that we can use to do good things with and not buy Lambos.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that, Elaine. Yes. I feel like we should crop that part out and like
Yeah,
cut it out.
put it on crypto Twitter, then they would like lose their minds.
Oh my God, don't! I'd be killed. I'd be killed.
I think there's something nice about like not hearing like have fun staying poor, which is like crypto Twitter is like they scream, all these men, they just scream it out there all the time, and it's nice to be in this like safe space chat. So I can't tell you how refreshing this has all been. You know, we need more women in this space if we haven't, you know, got that through enough. So I don't know. Go ahead.
Oh, and even when you think about remittances, right? That sounds like a big word, but for most of us, my family's from the Caribbean, you know, Latinx communities where you're sending money back home, where somebody's sending money back home, and that money is expensive. By the time Western Union and the like gets their cut, by the time your relative gets that money, they're getting a fraction of it, right? So when you think about, you know, making more money, think about keeping more money as well. You know, if we can actually disrupt the remittance process, more women who support other family members can keep more of their money and can make sure their family members get more of that money by making sure that we actually disrupt the remittance sector with cryptocurrency and blockchain.
Agreed. And I think it's a level playing field because it is open to everybody. And, you know, I saw there's this horrible statistic that women get less than 2% of venture capital, which makes me so angry, because that's like saying women only have 2% of good ideas, which is complete BS. One of the problems is that the people writing the checks are men, and they're writing checks to other men. And what happens too is when they have big exits, after they buy their Lambo, they turn around and invest in their buddies' companies. And so it's men funding men, and this cycle continues. And we're not going to break it until we have women who are writing big checks and funding other women. And, you know, we need to come up with the PayPal mafia of women. And there were a handful of women on the Coinbase cap table, but nowhere near what it could be, should be. And so crypto is an area where there is no boys network to get in on the deal, whereas women aren't getting in on the next Facebook because you're not friends with Mark Zuckerberg or whatever it is. But crypto, anybody can do it.
It's for everyone, and it's owned by no one.
Exactly. I love that phrase.
Love it. I don't know if we want to go to the Q&A session and answer any. I think we have like 9 minutes left. If there's any questions that speak to you that you guys want to answer, feel free. Other than that, I want everyone to get a chance to plug one last time what they do and how they can find you all. But I don't see like anything that we didn't cover. I think we're okay.
So someone asked this a long time ago, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I do think you hear a lot of the common complaints about Bitcoin that prevent people from getting into it. And I see a question in here about the environmental impact. And there is so much misinformation out there that Bitcoin is killing the world because of its energy use. We only know what Bitcoin's energy use is because it's a public blockchain, first of all. The Kardashians probably use more energy than the Bitcoin network. And I shudder to even think about what like the global banking system uses in terms of energy. But for some reason, this narrative has stuck that Bitcoin's killing the world. It is the farthest thing from the truth, because people who mine Bitcoin, those people who are racing to solve that problem, one of their fixed costs is electricity and energy. So they are incented to find the cheapest energy, the cheapest electricity anywhere. And a lot of that is green energy and hydroelectric, and not, you know, it's cheaper energy to find renewable energy sources. So a lot of people think that Bitcoin is going to help push forward the renewable energy industry way more than otherwise would have. So I know a lot of people, I get that all the time. Oh, it's killing the planet. It's not killing the planet.
I have a question here on Bitcoin's halving cycles. And so Elaine sort of touched on that earlier. is when the block reward that she was talking about that these miners get for completing these transactions, it reduces every 4 years. And so I'm not sure if that answers it. It's important to know because there can be, the market can change during those times, but people will say, is that having priced in or not? So I think if that's what you're asking there. And then I'm seeing questions about crypto taxes. You do pay taxes when you sell crypto. So you might have come across that today when you or recently, if you've done your taxes this year, they have added that.
Yeah. Again, this is not tax or financial advice for me.
It is.
However, the IRS recently added a question of like, do you own cryptocurrency? Technically, you don't have to tell them unless you have sold. So if you just bought some this year and you haven't done anything with it yet, it's not their issue yet. It's when you realize a gain or a loss, which is treated just like a stock. So it's long-term capital gains or short-term capital gains. Again, not tax advice, but that's how they treat it. And they are paying attention to the crypto world. That is for sure.
And there's a lot of guides out there for how to pay your taxes. There's some traditional financial institutions that have created them specifically for cryptocurrency, but as well as within the crypto ecosystem. So and even since that IRS, question came up, so there is a lot of help out there if you have made a trade and need to actually pay your taxes.
Awesome. Okay, I think, unless you guys see any other questions you want to hit on in the Q&A section, feel free. But I will let everyone just let people know where they can find you. Like, let this not be the last time you have a Bitcoin conversation. Come follow us on Twitter. Get involved in crypto Twitter. I would love to see more women over there. That is where there are a lot of information is disseminated. But let's go to Bitcoin Frankie. Where can they find you?
Yep, I'm Bitcoin Frankie at all social channels and Bitcoin Besties. It's my alias, y'all. When I got into crypto, I got really concerned about digital privacy, so I created an alias. But now I'm working through that. It takes time. There's baby steps in this.
Great, Cleve. Where can they find you?
My book, The Clevolution: My Quest for Justice in Crypto and Politics, is available on Barnes and Nobles. I'm at CMezi on Twitter, at Facebook, so you can find me there. My website is wocblockchainpolicy.com. Again, get my book, but I definitely recommend The Internet of Money as a good start for folks who want to just get this whole concept in their minds.
Great.
That's a good one. I am just on Twitter, eashersf. That's EASHERSF. And yes, please, more women on crypto Twitter is desperately needed. There's also, I would say, I don't know if anyone's on Clubhouse. Clubhouse has some fun crypto rooms that could certainly use more women. And it's a good place to learn as well. But I at Anchorage, and if anyone runs a business that wants to put their corporate treasury in Bitcoin with the institutional digital bank, hit me up. I'm just Elaine at Anchorage.com. But I am really excited about this panel, and I want to encourage everybody to just go buy a little bit of Bitcoin and start learning, because we cannot let the boys have all the fun here, ladies.
Yes. Cleve, someone is asking, what was your book again?
Oh, it's actually called The Clevolution. Believe it or not, I did not come up with that name. My Quest for Justice in Politics and Crypto.
Oh, it looks like Ashley posted the link here.
Awesome. And if you have not signed up for Lolli, I need to do another shameless plug once again, because it is pinned up at the top of the chat by Ashley. And if you use that referral link, you'll get some free Bitcoin when you sign up and shop for your first time, and I highly recommend it. I'm at Aubrey Strobel on Twitter, Instagram, all those things, and then follow Lolli, www.lolli.com. So it's all there for you. And I just want to thank everyone for tuning in.
Wait, I have one more Lolli plug.
Go ahead.
Once business travel comes back, for any of you guys that business travel and maybe have a corporate card, I would book all of my Marriott hotels through Lolli or by the company, and I would get the Bitcoin.
Yes,
That's back.
It's so good.
So great.
Game the system, guys. We gotta win. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Let's do this again. I would love to do more Bitcoin panels, and we can talk about other cryptos as well, and other questions. But thank you so much for joining me tonight. And yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks for having us.
Y'all.
See you all in Miami.
Let's see you in Miami.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks, everybody.